can never have such control.
All right, we should be live on YouTube.
Every time you leave, I wanna go.
Lights are hot.
Awesome.
Rip me up and bully me in jest.
Hello and welcome to the Big League Show. As always, I'm Connor Somerville, joined by Aiden Silliphant.
It is so nice to be back. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and we're live for the first time since March. It's been a long few months through COVID and everything that's currently going on in the world. But how are you doing today, Aiden?
I'm doing amazing. It's great to be back, Connor. Always a pleasure doing this show with you. Thank you, SpiritLive, for having us back. And yeah, it's been a good start to the day, and we're looking to have a good show today to kick things off here on Season 3 of the Big League.
Isn't this our fourth semester? Well, I guess, yeah, of the Big League, because we started off as the SS Live, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Well, then, we're doing technically our fourth semester on Spirit Live, just third under a different show name. But let's sort of give an idea of what we're doing with the show, because we've changed up a little bit since last semester. Today, it's going to be the same sort of thing. We're not going to really change much up for this episode, but for future episodes, what we're going to try to do is every week we try to have a guest on who is an upcoming member of sport media. So usually, and I say usually, it's always somebody from our program, usually our year. So we've been doing this basically since the pandemic started. We started just having guests on and really finding out about who they are and learning more about who they are as sport media professionals and as media professionals. So we do that, and then we talk sports and the past week in sports for us. But yeah, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so it's something that we tried over the summer. It was a good idea that we came up with. We've had a lot of good guests on so far, sharing their stories about sport media, and giving advice to future applicants, future people coming into sport media. So yeah, we're going to look to continue doing that every week, like Connor said. And I think it definitely provides some valuable information for the listeners. So yeah, we're excited that we're going to continue that. And also, it's not just an interview that we're going to be doing with these people, but we're also going to be getting their opinions on the world of sports and current sports news and what teams they're cheering for, what their thoughts are on Big Four sports. So it's going to be really exciting, and we're exciting for the next stage of the Big League coming to you this semester.
Yeah, it's exciting what we've sort of built, I guess, and seeing how we've grown over the past few years, I guess, or year and a half, 2 years. But yeah, so today we're just going to keep it a regular episode like we used to. We're also streaming the episode on YouTube. So if you want to listen after the episode, because we won't fit everything in that we want to today, and with future episodes, because talking about someone's entire life and then the past week in sports takes up quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
So we're on YouTube. You can go and check us out, The Big League. You just look that up on YouTube. Scroll past the Tom Cochran songs, and we're the first channel that pops up.
Just filter by channel, and it should be an easy find for you guys.
Exactly. So you can go and check us out there. We can interact with you in the chat as well if you want. But yeah, you want to just sort of get started?
Let's do it.
All right. What do we start with? What do you want to start with?
I'm thinking
basketball.
I'm thinking some MLB. There was a big game last night. World Series kicked off.
I didn't watch last night.
Big game you didn't watch. You're going to have to watch it tonight because the series is going to get interesting. Tampa Bay Rays against the LA Dodgers in Game 1 of the World Series. Clayton Kershaw was on the mound against Tyler Glasnow. Coming into the game, obviously, Kershaw's had his struggles in the World Series and in the postseason. The Dodgers in general have had major struggles when getting to the World Series. They've lost 2 of the past 3 years in the World Series. So they're looking to get the dub this year and win their first one in I don't know how long, since the 1990s, I believe.
I think it was like 88?
88, yeah, around there. So they got off to a great start. Blowout win last night against the Rays. I think it was 8-3 final. And, I mean, Kershaw looked great. The Dodgers' offense looked phenomenal. They really got to glass now. He admitted after the game that he was a little bit nervous, didn't really get into a rhythm like he wanted to early out of the gate. But once it got to like the third, fourth inning, he settled in a little bit more. But the Dodgers' offense was just relentless the entire game, and their bats exploded. Cody Bellinger hit another home run. Mookie Betts with another home run. Like, these guys were on fire last night. And it is a little bit scary for the Rays now, but in Game 2, they're going to have their best guy on the mound. Blake Snell is going to be pitching tonight up against Walker Buehler of the Dodgers, who is also a stud pitcher, but I don't think there's anybody else the Rays would want to have on the mound other than Blake Snell. So my prediction is that the Rays will win tonight. I think it's still going to be a very close series, even though the Dodgers, had a great game in Game 1. But I think it's going to be a long series, so I definitely wouldn't count the Rays out just yet.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how these two teams do. It was obviously a bit of a, as you mentioned, blowout last night. Unfortunately, I won't be able to watch the game because I have a 1,500-word essay to start, which is due tomorrow.
Ooh. To start? Oh, boy. Okay.
Procrastination, doing stuff for our TV show, has left me behind. But, yeah, it's exciting to see baseball actually finishing. Somehow they did it. Mm-hmm. Whether or not they should have finished is another story. But they managed to get to the World Series, so barring some outbreak on either the Dodgers or the Rays, MLB will finish the season, which feels like a bit of a miracle considering where they were back in like March, in June, in July, in August, in September.
Yep.
Basically the entire year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's good to see MLB finishing up. It's just another league that's been able to finish their season similar to the NBA. And we should talk about them next because there were a couple of big coaching hires. First of all, Tyronn Lue was hired as the head coach of the LA Clippers. He's the former Cleveland Cavaliers coach when LeBron was there. So he's taking over for Doc Rivers, who moved to Philadelphia after they relieved him of duties following the very bad playoffs of the Clippers. But it'll be interesting to see how Lue can do with Kawhi, Paul George, and the, shall we say, dysfunctional locker room currently, and whether or not he can repair that.
I think he's definitely going to do a good job. Like, you saw what he did when he was with Cleveland with LeBron and Kyrie, and like, you never know how that locker room is going to work out with J.R. Smith as well in there, and like mixed personalities, all that stuff. I think Tyronn Lue did a great job there. So I mean, I know the Clippers are in a really tough spot, and they had a horrible playoff run, like Connor said. Paul George didn't look good. Kawhi didn't look like himself. Some of their bench guys just didn't step up like they used to. So I like the hire, but until we see what they can do on the court, like we're not sure what it's gonna be. But I mean, on paper it looks good. It's a good start. It's a step up. But we'll see what they can actually do in the regular season. But most importantly, what they can do in the playoffs now, and can they actually make it to the Western Conference Final and go up against a team like the Lakers and get the win and then take that next step. Well, that is yet to be determined, but I guess we'll see next year.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how he does, because I believe he was an assistant coach this season with the Clippers. So we'll see whether or not he sort of has an idea of how that locker room functions and whether or not he can change it, I guess, or change the culture in there to make them more successful. But it's going to be interesting to watch. It'll be interesting to watch how the other new head coaching hire, Stan Van Gundy, will do with the New Orleans Pelicans, because that's a very, very young team, and they didn't make the playoffs this year, but they have a lot of really good pieces. Zion Williamson for starters, Brandon Ingram as well, and even Lonzo Ball, if you want to include him on that list. But Yeah, Stan Van Gundy had been rumored with a lot of teams, and he'd done some analyst work during the bubble. So it's interesting to see him get an opportunity following that TV work.
Is this guy going to be any good? Because from what I'm seeing, he worked with the Pistons before, and that's not the greatest organization in the world.
He was okay with the Pistons. Like, he was fairly decent. He's not a bad coach, but we'll see whether or not he can deal with the young guys and how well he can develop them into a contender and into a perennial contender, and whether or not he can make Zion that superstar that people think he's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, that team's got a ton of potential, like so many young guys, and I mean, he's got a lot to work with, so I think they're definitely trending in the right direction. I could maybe see this as more of a transitional kind of coach, maybe to help them, make it into the playoffs, but I'm sure once they've become a legit contender, maybe they look at a bigger name. But or you never know. I mean, he could prove me wrong, but I think it's more of a transition for the Pelicans right now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he can transition them and whether or not he can drive that team to the playoffs in a pretty good Western Conference. But I don't think we have anything else we need to add to the NBA. So let's talk a league that probably, as you threw in the doc, should have more coaches fired in the NFL. Tell us about why nobody's getting fired apart from Pat Quinn in Atlanta.
Quinn. Yeah.
Dan Quinn. Pat Quinn's the hockey coach.
Yeah.
Dan Quinn and who was the other?
Bill O'Brien, the Texans,
Houston Texans
head coach / general manager. That was just an awful situation. But I think, there's a ton of guys. Like, the worst team in the NFL right now are the New York Jets, and they are 0-6, and they still haven't fired their head coach. I don't get it. Like, maybe they're trying to tank. I know they want Trevor Lawrence. Who wouldn't want Trevor Lawrence? He's going to be, the next big thing. And maybe they figure that, okay, if we keep this bad head coach, it increases our chances of losing games. So maybe they don't want to make a change and spark something potentially. But if it wasn't the Jets, and if it was a team that was in competition to make the playoffs, and they were 0-6 at the time, like, the coach is gone. The coach is gone after 0-4. So the fact that he's lasted to week 7 now is ridiculous. And, I definitely expect him to get traded at least before the trade deadline. But then if you look at some of the other teams, and the Minnesota Vikings, I think people projected them to finish second in the NFC North behind the Packers this year. And they are 1-5 right now. And Mike Zimmer still has a job. I don't like that at all. I think he should have been gone after maybe the 4th loss. And then they could quickly turn it over because they got talent still. Kirk Cousins is still a decent quarterback. He's not having the best year, but he's been good in the past. Adam Thielen is a good wide receiver still. Dalvin Cook, running back. I know they lost Stephon Diggs, so that's a big name they lost, but you'd still think that they'd be in contention for a wild card spot at least. But as of right now, they're, I don't know how many games back, 3 or 4 games back of that wild card spot right now. So, Connor, to answer your question, it might just be because of how this year has been so far, and it might be hard to fire a coach when you got so much else going on in the world. But I don't think that should really be that big of an excuse because there's no bubble, right? It's still a 16-game season. But that could be the reason, or maybe it's just because of Trevor Lawrence, and teams think that this guy's going to be really good. We want to lose as many games as possible to get him.
Yeah, that's always a possibility, and I think that's especially the case with the Jets when you look at the fact that they just released Le'Veon Bell, arguably one of the best running backs in the NFL.
Yeah, I know.
And he just signed with Kansas City, so that team is insane. Again, Mahomes with Bell is just... That's going to be unstoppable.
Yeah, Bell, and they already have Tyreek Hill and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who they drafted in the first round last year. So him and Bell is going to be lethal in the backfield. And then like they have Sammy Watkins, who's injured right now. So when he gets back, they're going to be even better. Like Kansas City is unstoppable. Like they lost one game though. They actually lost. I forget what team beat them, but they're 5-1 now. But yeah, it's going to be tough to stop them, and I could definitely see them, making it back to the Super Bowl, and they have a good chance at repeating.
Very, very true. And finally on the NFL, Tua Tagovailoa?
Yeah, Tua Tagovailoa. Yeah, I can never pronounce it correctly.
I can't pronounce words to begin with, so
just say Tua.
Yeah, Tua. I don't even have his last name in the doc, so that's probably the first problem. But he was named the Dolphins starting QB instead of not Matthew Stafford. That's your QB.
Oh gosh, I wish the Lions had Tua.
True.
Could have drafted him too, but yeah, whatever.
Potentially. Who is he replacing again? I can
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
That's it. Ryan Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
So, do you think this is the right time for Tua to be named starting QB, or do you think that maybe this should come a couple weeks down the line and give him a bit more time to recover?
It caught me really off guard because the Dolphins have been having a pretty good year. They're 3-3. Fitzpatrick has won them all 3 games. And the only playing time that Tua has gotten was just in the last game, but they were up like 24-0. So he just came in and completed 2 passes. That was it. That's all he's played this year. And then a couple days later, they come out and say that he's the starting QB, even though Fitzpatrick has won them 3 games already. And Tua's done nothing. So I don't know. It does feel a little bit rushed. And I know he's had the injury problems in the past, and I'm not sure. I don't think you should give him the starting role this quickly. Like, maybe ease him in, like give him a couple of snaps per game, switching it up a little bit. Being more versatile, but I don't know, man. I think it's a little bit early.
Yeah, it's a tough call because on the one hand, he's very good, and on the other hand, you don't really want to risk injury. And they have Ryan Fitzpatrick as a potential option, and I don't know how good of a job he's done to start the season, but I feel like he could ride it out a couple weeks at least, right?
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Like, I mean, Fitzpatrick hasn't been the best quarterback, right? Like, throughout his career too. Like, and he's also 37. The Dolphins will look at making a transition at some point. I think maybe the biggest factor was just that last week the Dolphins play the Jets and Fitzpatrick threw 2 interceptions. That might have had something to do with it. And then I think it was they played the Seahawks 2 weeks ago, and then he threw another 2 interceptions, which is a bit more understandable because it is the Seahawks. But, I mean, that could have something to do with it. I mean, Tua came in and he threw 2 passes, and they're both completions, so he has a pretty good passer rating. But yeah, I still think it's a bit early.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say in terms of just risking one of your up and coming stars who's coming off a pretty serious injury.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch that entire situation.
I do think that, like, it's high risk but high reward as well. Like, if the Dolphins are to make a playoff push this year, I think they have a better chance of doing it with Tua than Fitzpatrick. Like, I think they could be a 500 team with Fitzpatrick. Maybe they get up to like 9-7 and sneak into the playoffs with Tua potentially, or it could just go the opposite way. Like I said, high risk, high reward. It could be amazing, or it could be the biggest flop in the world.
Very, very true. Now, let's move on to something that we said we touch on later in the, like next week or the week after, because all this stuff was sort of just breaking in the NWHL and everything that's sort of surrounding that entire situation. And another reason I wanted to wait was Haley Salvian from The Athletic was going on the Steve Dangle podcast. I didn't know this at the time, but I'm glad we waited, because she said a lot and provided a lot of context and information surrounding the decision of the NWHL to restructure their leadership and go to a more NHL, NFL, and I believe it's MLB system. But basically, some of the key points were basically she doesn't think that this moves the PWHPA to the NWHL. The PWHPA, if you're not familiar with it, are another organization of players who formerly played in the CWHL, who are now the league's now folded, and basically they left and they didn't like the setup of the NWHL. They had a lot of issues with the league, so they started their own thing, and they've been going on tours, as they're calling them, and playing games in front of fans and trying to gain, I guess, an audience and gain like fans
Viewership,
to women's hockey. And I think they've been fairly successful to it, but what the PWHPA apparently want that the NWHL doesn't have is they want it to be very similar to the NBA and the WNBA's system. So the WNBA is owned by the NBA. The NBA runs it, and they want that with the NHL because they want that money backing it, which is a bit of an issue because she also said the NHL doesn't have a business plan for a women's hockey league. Bill Daly told her that basically just that. And while this could be false, and the NHL has said publicly they don't want to enter the market when there's already another product there, this is a pretty big shot at the PWHPA's goals of making it an WNHL. I know there's a lot of different number, name, pattern things, so it might be a little difficult to follow. But yeah,
I mean, I'm all for making women's hockey like the NBA and the WNBA is, like the WNHL, like you said. I want that to happen. I think it'd be a huge step for women's hockey, obviously, you know, with the NHL right by its side the whole way, promoting it, giving them money, etc. And I don't know why I guess for Bill Daly right now, it's not maybe a priority, but I think at some point down the road, like, the NHL is going to have to partner. I think if they want to keep it alive, they're going to have to do it at some point. So I do respect what the PWHPA is doing and trying to do. But, yeah, I mean, I really want to see it like the WNBA and NBA, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Just because, I mean, I'm sure the NHLPA is super busy with so many other stuff going on in the world. It's tough to create a new league during everything that's going on. But I think it's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's got to happen. If you want to keep women's hockey alive, you have to figure this out.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting situation to follow. But she also, Haley Salvian, mentioned in the interview that she theorized Danny Ryland Kearney, who is the former commissioner who stepped down, to head up a group to try and sell the 4 teams that are owned by the league. She theorized that she might, in the future, possibly could come back to the role of commissioner. This was just a theory.
Jeez.
And this would have to happen after the NWHL has sold the teams, and she doesn't know what they're asking in terms of prices, what they think the teams are worth, but that's what she theorizes. She also said that the NWHL won't start until at least January. Big issue in the NWHL's case is brand new expansion team Toronto 6, who just hired their head coach, Digit Murphy. They require cross-border travel, and right now that's not really possible because of COVID and the pandemic. So we'll see where things lie in January and whether things get any better, which I highly doubt they don't, personally. But it will be really interesting to see just how that entire situation develops. Do you have anything you want to add before I theorize on something?
I want to hear this theory. I would go ahead. I got nothing else to say.
I'm wondering if this might be a sign that the NWHL is in a bit of financial trouble. With the pandemic, I think this definitely hurt the league.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. It's hurt everything. And I wonder if them looking to sell the league and restructure is they might have run out of money and they're trying to save the league.
I mean, that's a pretty good theory, I think.
That's the thing. It's just a theory. There is no known information there. It's unfortunate because we just watched the CWHL fold not even 2 years ago. And this would leave women's hockey without a professional league in North America. And the NHL doesn't sound like they're in a financial position to start a league. But
I mean, it could always happen. But yeah, I think what your theory, like, it could happen. Like, I definitely could see a possibility where your theory is correct. Like, the NWHL is panicking a little bit. Every league has been affected by this pandemic, so that's why they're trying to restructure it. But yeah, like you said, the NHL is in no position to be doing anything right now and creating a new league. Like, that takes time, that takes money, and money is not what these leagues have. They've lost so much money over the past few months. So it's a good theory, though. I could definitely see that being true, and maybe maybe a story does come out in a couple weeks, a couple months, and you're right, and we're looking back at this, and you're a genius, Connor.
We'll see. But it just seems like a lot of things are sort of adding up, and this I don't want to say it happened quickly, because I believe Haley Salvian mentioned in the interview that this had been talked about for a little while, but I'm unsure with how the NWHL is sort of structured and how the pandemic has affected the league as to whether or not this is a bit of we need to try and save the league here, because we can't continue to lose this amount of money because of COVID and because of everything like that. But it'll be something that we'll have to watch. It'll be something that I'm going to be following very closely, personally. But if you want to check out the Haley Salvian interview, go back and listen to the Steve Dangle podcast. It was from last week. So I guess it was 7 days ago today? So the 14th?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 14th, their podcast. Listen to it. It's filled with a ton of stuff. And she didn't just stop dropping bombs on the NWHL. She continued into the NHL. And Eugene Melnyk, who he has said some things. And I don't know whether or not they're going to come true. But basically, what he is talking about is letting 6,000 people in to watch games when they return. This amount of money and this number of people would allow them to break even. I'm also taking this, obviously, from the Steve Dangle podcast, and Adam Wilde, who is one of the hosts, said he says it sounds like he isn't pulling this out of the air from this quote. It's almost as if he's like thinking back on a conversation that he's had. Salvian, she mentioned that she doesn't know if this is a realistic thing because, pandemic, but it's out there.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, we don't know where they're going to play. Is there going to be some sort of bubble again? When the season's going to start? Are cases going to be still skyrocketing like they are right now, or is it going to be dialed down a little bit? 6K people in to watch a hockey game does seem like a lot of people. I still don't think there should be fans in games. The NHL has done a pretty terrific job of being, safe with all this, and they did a great job with the bubble. So I don't see them letting in fans, like, as of right now. If I'm looking at like January, I don't think there's going to be fans in the stands for January. Maybe they look to like what the MLB did, not have fans for the entire regular season, but then, you know, do the playoffs in a state that is allowing fans. Or
if they can't have fans, there's not going to be a season.
You think that?
It's not like they can't financially do it.
No fans, no season.
Yeah, I think the NHL relies on gate so much, and a lot of the small market teams rely on it so much. If they can't have fans at games, they're not playing.
Wow.
Because at that point, it's just not worth it. But that doesn't really pertain to Canada and Ottawa. Well, it pertains to Ottawa because Melnick has no money. But in terms of like Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, that's not really an issue.
No.
But I think you see fans in January. I do.
Really? Okay. And do you think that number is accurate then? 6K?
I don't know about 6K, but this didn't come out of nowhere. As Adam Wilde said, this didn't come out of nowhere.
Right.
This was something that he has discussed before.
Definitely, yeah.
And I think it's of a percentage where they've determined that the risk isn't as great as the potential cost. Or I guess the risk out... How do I want to put this? The risk is worth it, ultimately. Because Canada's done a very good job of keeping a handle on COVID, and you say that the NHL's done a great job with COVID. I just look at the Dallas Stars and how they had fans in their stadium to watch games, like to watch the Stanley Cup final.
Okay, yeah, that is true. I didn't, yeah. But I mean, in terms of the bubble, I guess, not having fans there. But
yeah, they're also not doing a bubble. That's
but also
a guarantee.
That is just like Dallas too, right? Like the Cowboys have fans in their stadium. Who else? Yeah, like the Stars. There's another team, I'm pretty sure. Maybe one of their college football teams having fans in the stadium. So
probably.
I don't know. I think the NHL's done an okay job with it, but yeah, bringing up that Dallas Stars thing does make me question it a little bit. But wow, yeah, I didn't realize that the NHL was in such a pickle, and there actually kind of has to be fans in order to have a season.
I think in Canada you could get away with it. You just have to reimburse Eugene Melnick.
Yeah,
it's the smaller market teams in the U.S. that I'm not sure about. I don't know the inner workings of the financials of every NHL team, so I don't know how much certain teams rely on gate as opposed to other teams. Mm-hmm. But from my interpretation, it sounds like they need the gate. But it'll be something that's going to be interesting to watch. Another thing that'll be interesting to watch is whether or not there will be a Canadian division.
Yeah.
This has been heavily theorized in terms of just keeping all the Canadian teams in Canada playing each other, which, first of all, I'm going to ask you this now before we get any more information. Mm-hmm. First of all, do you think this is realistic? Second of all, do you want to see it?
Yeah, that's the thing that I've been debating. Like, do I really want to see this? And like my favorite team is a Canadian team. Does it help them in any way? Do I think it's realistic? Yeah, I definitely think it's realistic. Like, you keep all the Canadian teams in Canada, you keep all the American teams in the States. So, you know, in terms of safety, there's no travel going back and forth in between countries. And then, like, here's where I'm at. Like, there's some pretty good teams in Canada now. Like, you can't sleep on these Canadian teams. Vancouver is good, Winnipeg's good, Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto, Montreal. Like, and then Ottawa's kind of the outlier, I guess. But like, everybody has potential to make the playoffs still. And in my opinion, the Leafs are the best Canadian team on paper, but I don't know if it's gonna help. Like it could make them into that first place team, get them the top seed, but also with so many other good teams in the league, it might be really close. Maybe Toronto gets pushed out of the picture as well. But then again, maybe it increases our chances of not going up against a team like the Boston Bruins. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
I'd love to see it. I think it'd be great. It would be the most competitive division in the NHL. I think that's
for sure
not really debatable. The amount of, like, the Canadian teams are already rivals. Just having them play for an entire season, it would be the best. Like, it would just be the best.
Yeah.
And I really want to see it. I think
it would create so many more rivalries, and yeah, it'd be like fanfare and like fan enjoyment, fan excitement. Like every single night, it could be a Canadian team against a Canadian team. That'd be amazing, I think.
Oh, for sure. And it would just the amount of eyes you'd get on each game would be amazing. It'd be perfect, and it would be ideal for Rogers and Sportsnet. It would be ideal for the NHL because they don't have to worry about Canadian teams trying to travel over the border and then come back and deal with the entire situation that a league like the MLS has had to deal with.
Yeah.
I think it'd be great. I would love to see it. I love to see the NHL open the season, as we talked about last week, on Lake Louise in Alberta, on the ice, with Edmonton versus Calgary.
Yeah.
That would be the best first game of the season in the history of the NHL, potentially of hockey.
Yeah, you're right about that. I would definitely agree with that. You could even go Toronto, Montreal. That's a classic.
Yeah.
But where do you think it would be? Would they do like a bubble kind of format again? Like have it not a bubble, but would they have like one arena that they would play at, or would there be travel throughout Canada?
I think there would be travel. I don't think they can do, like, I'm going to bring this back to MLS again, but the MLS did travel in Canada for like a few weeks, and no real issues came about that.
Okay.
So it's possible, and I think the NHL could get away with it because they have the pocketbooks to make it safe and make it happen. Whether or not they actually want to try and do that, who knows? I don't think they do a bubble again. From what Elliot Friedman said on Headlines a few weeks ago, in terms of the cost, like I think he's theorized like 75 to 90 million it costs the NHL.
Yeah, wow.
So they're not doing that again. I can guarantee you that for 100% certainty. But it will be interesting to see what they decide to do, and whether or not they decide to have just a Canadian division and then create new divisions. But we should move on because we have like 12 minutes left in the show, so we're definitely going to go long. But I think we'll end with our usual hot takes on the live episode, and we'll continue the sports talk afterwards on our YouTube channel, which we'll plug at the very end again. But let's talk Blackhawks.
Okay.
And the letter that they released to fans. You haven't seen this?
Very similar to what the Rangers did like 3 years back.
You beat me to it. It's basically the exact same thing the New York Rangers did. Telling their fans that they're going to go full rebuild.
Yeah.
Who goes?
Well, the way I read it is that, like, I don't know if they're gonna do a full rebuild. Like, I don't think they're gonna trade Taves and Kane. I didn't. That's not what I got from the letter. From what I got from the letter is that these guys are committed to acquiring young players, drafting well, drafting well, and and developing them and letting them play with their big guys like Taves and Kane and Keith still. I still think that they see an opportunity where these two generations collide and can do something special. Like, we saw what the Blackhawks were still able to do against the Edmonton Oilers. Like, Jonathan Taves still has plenty of game left. Kane does as well. Dominic Kubalik is a rising star. He's not as old as those guys. Obviously, he's a younger guy, but he's great. So if you can develop, those three guys as your core for the future, and then bring in younger players, Kirby Dach, Boakfist, guys that they drafted last year, I believe they had a pretty good draft. They're going to be scary, I think. I don't think it's going to be a long rebuild. I think it's going to be a quick transition like the Rangers had. I think in 3 or 4 years, when Taves and Kane are nearing, the end of their career, maybe they have like 1 or 2 good years left in them, the Blackhawks could be scary. They could be really scary.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. They're going to be potentially a very good team. Who do you think gets traded?
That's the thing. Like, they've already traded, well, they've got rid of Corey Crawford already. They've traded Brandon Saad. Like, I don't see them trading Kane or Taves. I don't see them moving on from Kubalik. I think they see him as a part of their future. I think maybe, Andrew Shaw's probably gone. But for the most...
Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
What about Duncan Keith?
Duncan Keith's a really interesting one. I think there wouldn't be as much value there anyways, so they would just hang on to him and let him play out his career as a Blackhawk. Like, he's been there his whole career. I don't think the Blackhawks want to move on from him. Like, what could you realistically get back for this guy? Like, maybe a fifth round pick, and is it really worth it at that point? Because I think, what most teams struggle with in a rebuild is just completely getting rid of all of your guys and starting from scratch. But in my eyes, you need those veterans to help out the young guys, to help develop them quicker and give them advice and help them grow, right? So I think Duncan Keith is definitely going to be a big part of developing, that defensive core back there, as well as Seabrook. I think, Boakfist is a guy who has a ton of potential. They just got Nikita Zadorov. I think, he could learn a lot from Keith as well. So, I mean, I don't think he's gonna be gone. I could see like Andrew Shaw leaving town, but for the most part, this Blackhawks roster is already pretty young. Like, I think they were the youngest team in the playoffs, right?
I have no idea.
Okay. I think that's what they said in the letter, too. Like, they were the youngest team in the 2020 Stanley Cup playoffs.
It's definitely an interesting case study, because if they just try to replicate what the Rangers did, I feel like they could be in a really good spot. But that would probably mean parting ways with Keith and Taves and Kane,
well, also, like,
I don't know if they want to do that.
Well, the Rangers, they also got pretty lucky with Capo Caco, I guess, getting the second overall pick there, and then Alexis Lafreniere in this year's draft. But also they got lucky with signing Panarin, having him go to free agency and getting him. So that kind of escalated the rebuild a little bit. But I think the Blackhawks like a lot of these young players. Like, Dylan Strome was a nice piece that they found. I think he's a second line center still, and he's still young. He can grow. Alex DeBrincat didn't have the best year last year, but put him with Kane, and I think he had a 40-goal year 2 seasons ago. So he can definitely hit that mark again, I would say. Alex Nylander, I think he's got some potential left in him still. There's guys there that are still young and they want to be a part of the future. Kirby Dach's a big name. I think I'm really high on him. If they play him with Taves on the top line, I think he's going to learn a lot and he's going to rack up the points next year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, but we're running out of time on today's show.
Yep.
So I think we should do hot takes on here.
Okay, I think so too. Yeah.
All right.
If you guys haven't been watching our show for the summer, we've always struggled with coming up with these. We always come up with them on the spot. So I got nothing, Connor. Do you have anything?
All right. I'll make mine NWHL related because that was a pretty big topic today for us. And
Yeah.
I will say the NWHL either has a complete new ownership group, folds, or is a part of the NHL by the time the pandemic ends.
Wow. By the time it ends, okay.
Look, I just gave myself a massive time window because
Yeah,
we don't
true.
know when the
Yeah.
pandemic's going to end.
That is
This
true.
could be 40 years from now.
Yeah.
That's called a smart hot take.
That
folks.
that could be a smart hot take or the worst hot take in history.
Very possible. Based on my history, it's going to be the worst hot take because every single one I get wrong.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
but we'll ignore that fact.
That's a pretty good one. I hope it happens, and I hope the pandemic ends soon as well. Let me see what I want to do. I think I'll go baseball related. And I'm gonna say Tampa Bay Rays are going to reverse sweep the LA Dodgers in the World Series. They're gonna win the next 4.
Wow. That is quite the hot take.
Yeah, that's too hot. I don't even know if that could be realistic enough. Like that's
that
very
will-
hard to believe. That is hard to believe.
That'll require the Dodgers to win 2 more games and then just blow up.
No. I mean, like it's over in 5 games. The Rays just win the next 4.
You're thinking, okay, I thought you were talking about, okay, I got what you're saying now.
Yeah.
That is a hot take.
Yeah.
We'll see whether or not it comes true. But with that, we want to thank you for listening.
Yep.
We are going to continue the show over on our YouTube channel. We'll go talk all the signings of the past week, including Cody Ceci somehow, Joe Thornton, Ilya Mikheyev. We will talk Doc Emmerich retiring, the legendary sports reporter, play-by-play guy for the NHL, and all the other signings. So we'll probably be going for the next 15 minutes to half an hour over there. So if you want to go and check that out, look up The Big League on YouTube. We will be the first channel, I assume, when you organize by channels, or if you don't want to organize by channels, just look up The Big League, scroll past the 3 or 4 Tom Cochran songs, and click on our channel, and our stream will be there. It will also stay live on YouTube, the entire episode. So if you want to go back and listen to that, feel free. But yeah, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week, hopefully with another guest. But we'll see. We're in the middle of a pandemic and doing school online. So we will see whether or not we can find time to get somebody on.
Should be able to, yeah. We'll see.
Fingers crossed. But we'll be back next week. So we will see you next time.
Waking souls when the sea calls.
Solid. Good job. All right, we are still live on YouTube. All right, I'm gonna get out of here if I can.
Up in the big league.
How do I leave the channel?
Disconnect. Go right next to voice connect.
Nice. All right. Can you still hear me? No. Hold up, people. We're still figuring this out. All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Amazing.
The YouTube audio to see how we sound. I'm going to talk and I can no longer hear you.
Okay. Let's see how we sound.
WHL is panicking. Said the NHL so much money.
We actually I sound pretty good. What did you
Oh,
change?
yeah. You're good.
Give me 1 second.
I did not change a thing. I think I may have upped the volume on you a little bit more. It's a little bit past me today, so that might have done it.
Yeah, there's no echo this week either, so that's a good thing.
Sick.
But to our viewer, because we did have somebody switch over, so thank you for doing that. We'll continue the show, and just as usual, you get a bit of a sneak peek in terms of us switching over and the 2 minutes it took to do that. But yeah,
I hope we don't get copyrighted for the music that SpiritLive was playing there.
that's a good point. Yeah,
It was only for
hopefully
like
not.
5-10 seconds. Like, yeah, we'll be fine.
Yeah, and I don't think they'll strike you. They might claim.
Yeah, it's fine. We're not making money off of this. Like, I think they might give me the option to mute it if it comes to that, so it's fine.
Okay, yeah, so we can figure that out when we get there.
Yep.
But let's continue on. Let's do Doc Emmerich, and then we can hit all of the signings and that fun stuff. But Doc Emmerich, the legendary play-by-play voice for NBC, has decided to step away from broadcasting, and he's retiring. He will apparently be able to continue. NBC's allowing him to continue doing sort of feature voiceovers and things like that in the future.
Nice.
According to him, so he won't disappear completely, but he's stepping away from hockey. So that's a legendary play-by-play voice that's now stepping away. We've lost Bob Cole, his voice, and now Doc Emmerich in the span of 2 years, a year.
Yeah, and then I guess on the other side, baseball as well. We lost Jerry Howarth, the longtime voice of the Toronto Blue Jays as well. So losing a lot of great voices, and Doc Emmerich was one of my favorites. He did the play-by-play in some of the EA Sports NHL games as well. I wonder if he's gonna continue doing that in the future potentially. Yeah, he's gonna be missed. Some of my favorite goal calls, that one in the playoffs 2 years ago, Penguins Capitals, Fleury made like 5 outstanding saves in a row. Just go listen to it. I'm not even gonna try to mimic it. Yeah, that's good. Alec Martinez, when he scored the game-winning goal in the Stanley Cup Final against the Rangers, that was a good one. He had some really good calls, so he's definitely going to be missed, and it did catch me a little bit off guard too. And shout out to him, phenomenal career. I mean, he sets the standard for hockey broadcast announcers.
Yeah, he does. Gordon Miller does as well, and Bob Cole used to. So I'm going to ask you this. Who do you think is the best hockey play-by-play voice now?
It's tough to say. Like, the best. Is there a difference between best and favorite? I guess there is, right?
Yeah, I guess there is.
I'll do my favorite. I'll do favorite because for best, like I gotta analyze it a lot more. Like I gotta do some research to really see like, okay, this guy's probably the best, but he might not be my favorite. In terms of favorite, I mean, Gord Miller's a tough one to say no to. Yeah, him, and I like that Punjabi guy. Singh, I think is his last name. On Hockey Night in Canada, he does that. Hockey Night in Punjabi or something like that.
I can't remember his name off the top of my head. That's embarrassing. I should know that.
Singh. I'll take a look.
I don't think I've ever listened to his play-by-play.
Harnarayan Singh.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't understand it unless you speak Punjabi, but it's pretty entertaining just listening to it.
Yeah, what was his famous call? Was it the Penguins?
Yeah,
Benino.
Benino. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nick Bonino. Yeah.
I'm a big Gordon Miller guy. I've met him a couple times, and he's a really good guy.
Yeah.
I like him. I also love Chris Cuthbert.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
fact
he's
Sportsnet
good.
managed to somehow get him away from TSN. That was pretty big.
Geez, I'm trying to think. Doc Emmerich, man, he was so good.
He had that like almost retro voice.
You know what? The Pittsburgh Penguins play-by-play announcer. He's not there anymore. He retired, I think, 3 years back. Oh man, I don't even remember the name too. Steve Lang. Oh man. I forget it. I forget the name, but he was so good. He had some pretty good calls. When the Penguins won the cup, he was just like, get in the fast lane, Grandma. The bingo game is ready to roll. The 2016 Stanley Cup champions, the Pittsburgh Penguins. And then he says, like, slap me, silly Sydney. Make me a milkshake, Malkin. Yeah, he has a lot of those catchphrases. Yeah. I liked him. I forget his... Oh, Mike Lang. Mike Lang. There we go.
Yeah. I recognize that name. Yeah, there's been some legendary voices, and it's going to be interesting to see who fill those shoes, whether or not it's Ryerson sport media people like Victor Finlay or someone else. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who NBC chooses to replace him.
Yes.
That's a big loss to them, but
I think they have some good up-and-coming ones. I know Kenny Albert. I think he's done some work with them. So, I don't know. You never know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. But let's move on to the signings of the past week. And we won't spend a ton of time on them because I have to start an essay that's 1,500 words long on an album, which I haven't listened to. Yeah. Evgeny Dadonov signed a 3-year, $5 million per deal with the Ottawa Senators. It includes a 10-team no trade clause, helping them scratch their way towards the cap floor, which I'm checking now. I don't even know if they've reached that yet. Let's see. They have barely. They're just in there.
Nice. This one's a bit surprising too. I don't think you would have expected this a week ago.
Not at all. I don't think anybody would have expected it. He's now their highest paid player, or behind Thomas. He's second highest paid player, behind Thomas Chabot. Third highest.
How much is he making again? Oh, $5 million a year.
Mil.
So that's
He's
less.
behind Thomas Chabot and Matt Murray.
Yeah, Matt Murray got paid. Yeah, I mean that's a lot of money. That's quite a bit, but they had to do it, and Ottawa could obviously afford him, and they're getting a good player, and I think he's still in his 20s, so yeah, that's a good signing.
Dadonov is 31.
Is he? Okay. Huh. I like 3-year deal. I don't think the Senators are going to be competing for the Stanley Cup in those 3 years. And I could see Dadonov maybe getting traded at the deadline, if need be, in maybe his second or third year of the contract. So, I mean, it does help them, get to that minimum salary cap, or not yet, but it will help them get there. And it will help them fill out their roster and get some scoring and help, Tkachuk and Chabot get some more goals on the power play, points on the power play. So, I mean, I still think, like, if I was a Sens fan right now, I kind of know what's up still, and, like, we're not going to be competing next year. But it's going to be a signing that will make the Senators a little bit more enjoyable to watch.
And he automatically becomes their first-line right winger. Maybe not. Maybe you could argue Colin White is their first-line right winger.
No, definitely Dadonov.
Really?
I would think so, yeah. Dadonov, put him with Tkachuk. Who's their first-line center? Do they have a good first-line center? Or am I just blanking?
Well, Colin White can play center. Artem Anisimov can. Nick Paul.
Right.
Because somehow. Josh Norris.
He's still young.
Josh Norris is, 21. Brady Tkachuk can play center. Logan Brown, Drake Batherson.
Connor Brown.
No, he's a winger.
Oh yeah, he's a winger, right?
And he's a current RFA with arbitration rights. And I don't know if you saw what they came in at, but they were miles apart.
Oh, I didn't see it actually.
Yeah, he's asking for somewhere in the 4s, I think.
Wow.
And they're coming in, I think, like somewhere in the 2s.
Okay, yeah, that's a bit more reasonable. I mean that always happens though. The player goes in very high and the team goes in very low. I could see Brown getting around 3. He had a good year.
Yeah. I think he'll get mid 3s, low 3s, somewhere around there. But it'll be interesting to see how that turns out and where he plays in their roster, as well as Dadonov, and how that sort of has things sort of fall into place after they acquired Austin Watson, which why do people continue to acquire that guy? And yeah, they're going to be a weird team next year, and something tells me they're not going to be very good. But a team that will be, I think, very good are the New York Rangers, who signed another person who people aren't exactly fond of, Tony DeAngelo, to a 2-year, $4.8 million per deal with the New York Rangers. What do you think about this contract?
Yeah, when it first broke, my friend texted me and he said something like, "That's a lot," and I kind of disagreed a little bit because I think he's kind of worth that amount of money. Like he had a pretty good season with the Rangers. You know, he exploded. I think coming into the year, everybody said that Trouba's the number 1 guy. DeAngelo might be even like the 3rd guy on the team. But DeAngelo, by the end of the season, was their best defenseman. He was number 1. And I think he's worth the money. I think this guy's very good offensively. I think he can put up, 50 points next year as well. Playing with Panarin and Zibanejad on the power play helps with that a lot. But I think he's worth the money. And 4.8 isn't necessarily that expensive as well. Getting him for below 5. I like the contract. I don't really have a problem with it. And 2 years as well, that's not really that risky. If it doesn't pan out, this guy's a free agent in 2 years.
He's an RFA at the end of the deal with arbitration rights.
Even better.
And their right side is just disgusting. They got Jacob Trouba up top, starting on the first pair. Second pair, Tony DeAngelo. Third pair, Adam Fox. So
yeah,
that team is going to be very good next year. And it'll be interesting to see just how good they are and whether or not Igor Shesterkin and Alexander Georgiev can carry them to the Stanley Cup or to the playoffs, because that's going to be huge for them in terms of potentially making the playoffs. But let's move on to the next signing, Andrew Mangiapane, 2 years, $2.5 million per with the Calgary Flames. What do you think about this deal?
I'm going to be honest. I don't know too much about him. I think he's, a third, fourth line player. Can play on the penalty kill. I think it's a good deal. 2.45 isn't too expensive. I don't really have too much to say on it. What are your thoughts on the contract?
I've heard good things about him. I believe the staff and Graph, I think they're big fans of him, and they think he's very good. By the way, watch out for the staff and Graph. Something might be coming very soon. But I think it's a good signing. It's a good forward piece to Calgary, and I think he played pretty well last season. It's not an insane cap hit, too. It's only 2 years. He can play left or right wing. He's 24. He's going to be an RFA with arbitration rights at the end of the deal. I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. I think from the few games that I've seen Calgary play, I watched a lot of that Dallas-Calgary series, and I remember him being like a workhorse. Like, he can really get in on the forecheck and, do some damage. He can bang a little bit, be physical. So, that's what you need in the playoffs. And if he can score, 10 to 15 goals as well, that'd be pretty solid for Calgary.
Fully agree. Let's move on to the next signing. Somehow, some way, Pittsburgh Penguins managed
Oh, what?
to
I
replace-
thought you were going somewhere else with that. Okay, yeah, still, yeah, CC.
No, we're
yeah.
gonna leave the Leafs to the very end of the podcast.
Okay.
Somehow, some way, Pittsburgh Penguins managed to replace Jack Johnson with Cody Ceci.
It's an upgrade. It's an upgrade.
Is it though?
Jack Johnson is awful. I know Cody Ceci. I think, okay, well, with Jack Johnson, first of all, Pittsburgh ruined his career. Like, he was okay on Columbus. He was their top 4 defenseman, offensive guy. But then I think when he got to Pittsburgh, he was playing on the bottom pair. They were expecting him to be more defensive, but that's not really his game style. He wants to be, up in the rush and being offensive and doesn't want to worry about defense. And I think it's kind of the same with Cody Ceci. Like, he was a solid player in Ottawa. And then when he comes to Toronto, he's awful. He's really, really bad. But I don't mind that Pittsburgh took a shot on him. Like, 1 year, $1.25 million. Like, that's not really that expensive at all. It's a 1-year contract. He's a right-handed defenseman. Why not, I guess? Pittsburgh needed someone to replace Johnson, I guess. And I think Ceci's going to have a much better year, to be honest. I think the Leafs kind of just ruined him. And I think, Mike Sullivan can really do a good job with them. Chris Letang will do a good job with him. So, it might be a pretty good steal. And dare I say, it might be a steal for the Penguins.
So, who does he play with?
Pittsburgh Penguins decor. Who do they got? Letang, John
just list off.
Marino. Yeah,
I can list off who they have on the left.
Sure.
Because obviously Ceci's right-handed. They got Mike Matheson on the left, Brian Dumoulin, Marcus Peterson, UC Ricola, and that's it.
I would put him with Dumoulin. I think Dumoulin and Ceci on the second pair would be pretty good. Dumoulin is really good defensively, and Ceci is not. So I think, that's a good balance. Ceci can kind of do his thing, jump into the rush, and not have to worry about, blocking the guy in front of the net too much. And Dumoulin is that big guy. I think he's like 6'3", 6'4". He can do that for you. So I would definitely put him with Dumoulin and then let Letang play with, John Marino on the top pair and, focus on scoring the goals.
What about Michael Matheson?
I think Matheson's that bottom pair guy. I don't think you should put Matheson with Ceci. I don't think you should.
You're paying a bottom pair guy $4.875 million per until 2026-27.
You're right. So I mean, the Penguins could also go like Dumoulin, Letang, Matheson, Marino, and then Pettersson, Ceci. But I think Pettersson, Ceci would be pretty bad. I think you kind of got to ease Ceci in a little bit and put him with a bigger guy like Dumoulin. So, but I don't see Dumoulin on the bottom pair, though. That's the thing. Like, maybe you could do... Is Matheson's left-handed, you said?
Yes.
So, put Matheson on the top pair with Letang. And then Dumoulin, Ceci, and then Pettersson and what's his name? Marino. I think that's a pretty solid decor. If Ceci fits in, that's pretty solid, I think.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. Because the advanced numbers on Ceci and Mike Matheson, I know aren't good.
I don't like the Matheson deal as well. Like, definitely too much money for him. I didn't understand what the Penguins were trying to do there. So yeah, you're right about that. They're two pretty bad players, but if you put them with the two best defensemen on the Penguins, then maybe it helps them, and maybe they go back to their old selves. And if CC can go back to the way he was playing in Ottawa, and Matheson can go back to the way he was playing, in his early years with the Panthers, and in junior, I guess, then they'll be okay.
All right, let's move on to Matt Grzelcyk, who signed a 4-year, $3.6875 per with the Boston Bruins.
I think that's a lot of money. I don't know where's Grzelcyk gonna fit in. He's probably gonna be a second defensive pair guy on the Bruins, but I don't know. Like he's replacing Torrey Krug, right? He's more of that offensive guy, left-handed shot. Will probably play first line power play, and I don't know. I think it's a bit of an overpayment. I think it is a little bit of an overpayment. Like we haven't seen too much of Grzelcyk. He's still a younger guy. And I think with the Bruins, right, they might be dealing with some cap problems. They still got to sign Jake DeBrusk. I think that they should have worried about the DeBrusk contract before they go out and get Grzelcyk, who has been a bottom pair guy for most of his tenure. I know Grzelcyk is very good defensively, so that ties into it a little bit. Maybe that's where he got his money. But, I would prefer DeBrusk signing him over Grzelcyk.
I disagree.
Okay.
I look at their defense scores, and they have one other left-handed defenseman in John Moore. Other than that,
that's not good.
Charlie McAvoy, Brendan Carlo, Connor Clifton, and Jeremy Lozen are all right-handed.
You think Chara's coming back?
That's a very good question.
Because if he comes back, then he's going to play top 4. And then you got Matt Grzelcyk on the first line. I guess he would be first line anyways, but I don't really think Grzelcyk is worth it on the first line. Like, I don't know. I mean, if you're paying under $4 million for a first line defenseman, that's pretty good. Like, that's good value. But is Matt Grzelcyk really that guy for you? I don't think he is.
It's such a tough one. I think he is. I say this all the time. I don't have them in front of me. But I think his advanced numbers are pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's a terrible signing. But at the same time, it might be a terrible signing. I have no idea. But let's move on to... I'm just looking at this now because the Edmonton Oilers just signed Chris Russell.
Yeah.
To a one-year extension, $2 million per. And I'm trying to justify in my head why they would make that signing.
I don't know. I guess they need some defensive help.
No, I'm looking at it because I'm looking at the expansion draft.
Okay.
Right now, the only eligible defensemen they have for the expansion draft are Darnell Nurse, Tyson Barrie, Ethan Bear.
Mm-hmm. So
presumably
they just want Russell to be exposed. That's why they're doing it. It was a 2-year deal, I guess.
It was a 1-year extension, so his contract doesn't end until this offseason.
That makes sense then, yeah.
I think that's why they did it, personally.
No, I think you might be right about that. How much did he get again?
$2 million. 2.5, sorry.
2.5.
Apparently.
Yeah, 2.5. 2.5 is a lot of money for Chris Russell. Like, he only got 9 points last year. He's 33 years old. And Edmonton's going to be dealing with some cap problems too, I'd imagine. So that's quite a lot of money for a guy who's going to be playing on your bottom pair. So I think you might be right. They're just looking for someone to expose. Do I think that the Seattle Kraken will take Chris Russell? Probably not. So he might be stuck with him, but I don't. It's a lot of money. I think that's a bit of an overpayment.
And next off season, they have to sign Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to an extension. Alex Chason's up, but okay.
They'll
Juju
probably.
Farah's up.
I think they're gonna buy him out. Buy him out next year.
You think they're just gonna buy out Chris Russell?
Buy him out, or you flop him for. I mean, you're gonna have to give up a decent pick as well with Russell to get rid of that contract. If they got to sign Nugent Hopkins, like
Nugent Hopkins already 6, right?
Yeah, he's gonna get a lot more. I think he could get 8 if he's playing another season with McDavid. He's gonna light it up.
If he makes 8, that's just you lose Chasen.
Okay.
He makes 2.15, and he's a free agent at the same time.
Yeah, that's true. But the roster's gonna change. Like you can't just say that they could do that right now. Like I think Chris Russell's gonna be a flop. I don't think he's gonna be good with the Oilers next year, and I think they'll be regretting the contract, and they're gonna be looking at moving it. I think Nugent Hopkins is gonna have a great year. Do they have any other UFAs that they gotta sign or RFAs that they gotta sign next year?
Tyler Ennis expires, but he's 1 mil. How do I say this name? Gaten Haas? I probably said that wrong. Kaylor Yamamoto.
Kyler, yeah. Oh, you know what?
Tyler.
Yamamoto might get paid. He's a good player. Is he on his entry level contract right now?
Yes. He is getting paid $894,106. I'll tell you where they get the money from.
Well, hold on. Watch Yamamoto get like $4 million next year. I think he's really good.
Well, I've now found your $4 million because Adam Larson expires next summer.
Oh, that's good then. Okay.
Adam Larson and Tyson Barrie.
Really? Oh yeah, Barry was only 1 year.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they have enough cap space. Their issue is signing a guy this season because they still have Ethan Bear as an RFA.
Yeah.
So they got I think $700K in cap space, but they have 2 extra forwards on the roster. So presumably Haas, if that's how you say his name, he isn't on the starting roster, which frees up $915K. So yeah, I think they're fine personally, but they're gonna have to find the money somewhere, and they're in a similar position as the Leafs, where they have to find the money somewhere to sign Tyson Barrie, because they've spent a lot of money on, well, I say a lot of money, not a lot of money, but a lot of cap space sort of on Joe Thornton, who signed a 1-year $700,000 deal with the Leafs with a full no move, and Ilya Mikheyev, which we'll talk about in a second. Let's start off with, first of all, did you see this coming? Second of all, shout out to Kyle Cushman, because I believe he's the one who broke this trade. Third of all,
which one are we talking about right now? I missed the first part of that. Thornton. Yeah, okay. My thoughts. I mean, it's Joe Thornton, like 41 years old. He's going to play in your bottom 6. He's going to provide a lot of leadership in the locker room, on the bench. I mean, Matthews, all the young guys will learn so much from him. To get him at $700K is amazing. And it's a great story. Obviously, you know, we've been trying to get this guy for, I think, a couple of years now, when his contract was up a few years ago. And now we got him. He has a chance to win the cup with his boyhood team. And it could be something special. You know, he thinks that the Leafs are really good. He thinks that they can win next year. And I think it makes them a better team. And yeah, you got Joe Thornton on your team with this much experience. Like, you can't go wrong with it. It's a great move. And I love what Kyle's been doing so far this offseason.
Yeah, I think he's done pretty well. I love this deal for the Leafs as well. I think this is great. I don't know if you heard me say this, but shout out to Kyle Cushman, because he's the one who broke the trade, apparently.
He broke it? Like
yeah,
he was
I
the
think
first
so.
one?
I think so. It was him or Friedman.
What?
Yeah. Yeah,
Jeez.
I know.
How did he know?
So shout out Kyle. I don't know who his source was, obviously.
Right.
But he said yesterday in class that shout out to small town Ontario connections.
Okay.
Because his parents, I think Thornton's parents still live in this area, or in Ontario.
Okay.
And his dad's favorite team is Toronto.
Right.
So Joe Thornton making his dad's dream come true and having his son play for the Leafs, which is really cool. And I think he's got a legit shot at the cup. I want to know, where do you see him fitting in on the Leafs?
I think it all depends on what they do with Alex Kerfoot. If they trade Kerfoot, then he gets moved into that third line center role. But as of right now, he's the fourth line center in my eyes. And he's going to play on the second power play. And that's really about it for him. I think it's more just what he's going to provide on the bench and in the locker room. And I know he's got some a lot of hockey left in him, like he says he does, and he's still one of the game's best assist players, the best passers in the league. So, if he plays on that second power play, setting up, Mikheyev or the defenseman, that TJ Brody. So I think it's going to be a good fit. I see him as the fourth line center in my eyes right now. But if they move Kerfoot, then he gets bumped up to the third line.
Yeah, I think he will probably be a third liner, personally.
Okay.
I think they might use Kerfoot on the wing instead of at center. I think they bump Mikheyev back to the Tavares line.
Okay.
With Tavares and Nylander, and I think it's a line of Kerfoot, Thornton, and maybe VC, maybe Nick Robertson if they keep him up. Maybe they sort of send him down. I think Wayne Simmons is probably a fourth line guy, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the Leafs sort of wrap up the offseason, because they still have to sign Travis Dermott, and they, according to Cap Friendly, their projected cap hit is 81.675. So
yeah,
they're gonna have to find it. That's with Pierre Engvall buried.
Yeah.
Buried. He's currently in the AHL on their site.
I could see them trading him, Engvall, or maybe even Justin Hull. Like, he's got $2 million on his plate, and the Leafs could use $2 million. I think for sure. Like, you know my thoughts on Dermott already. I don't think he's the best player, and they need to move on from him. But I think definitely one of Dermott or Hall will be traded, and because the Leafs have too many defensemen now, I think. So I think one of them will be traded.
I think it's Hall, but it's because you run into the issue, right, of who do you expose in the expansion draft?
Yeah, so that messes everything up.
Obviously, you're protecting Muzzin, Riley, Brody. Yeah, that's a guarantee.
Yeah, for sure.
Up top, your three defensemen.
Yeah. You got to, unless you're certain that Riley isn't coming back and you're not signing him again, he's definitely going to be protected.
You have one more year on him at $5 million. You're not letting him go.
Yeah.
I can guarantee that. But then you look at the forwards. You have Matthews, Tavares, Marner, Nylander, guaranteed protected.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. So, do the Leafs go 4-4, or do they still go 7-3 and protect Mikheyev, protect Hyman, even though he's going to be UFA?
Mm-hmm. I think he goes 7-3. And, I mean, at that point, like, you're probably going to lose one of Hall or Dermott, because they're going to protect Muzzin. They're not going to let Muzzin be exposed. So, yeah, and then 7 forwards up front. Like, I think getting Mikheyev, and we're going to talk about that contract later, but they're definitely going to want him for next year. I think they want at least a chance to re-sign Zach Hyman. And then they have another empty spot as well for someone they'd like to keep. So, yeah, I think they should go 7-3, but it's still a ways away from now. That could change. There could be moves that are made. So, what about you? Do you think they go 7-3 or 4-4?
I think they go 7-3 and they make a trade with Seattle to protect Dermott and maybe let Hall go.
Okay.
Like they give a 4th round pick to Seattle and say, take Hall, let us keep Dermott. Because you have to remember, Justin Hall is 28.
Yeah.
Travis Dermott is 23.
That's facts.
There's that big age gap.
What do you think Dermott would get in arbitration?
He doesn't have arbitration, though.
Oh, no? They just got to negotiate. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think he's going to get?
I think it's going to be like 1.25.
Wow. Okay. Huh.
Why, you think it's going to be more?
I think it's going to be more. But if we could get him for that would be pretty solid. And then just a 1-year deal.
Yeah, I think it's like 1 year. I think from what I've seen online from people who know the situation, I guess, like the Myrtles and the Friedmans, mostly Myrtle, it doesn't sound like it's going to be a very big number.
Okay.
Like it won't exceed Mikheyev. I don't
No,
think.
probably not. No. Well, I mean, Mikheyev, if you look at, should we talk about that deal now? Like he took a pretty big discount. I thought he was going to get around $2 million, but to get him for, $400K less than that, it's pretty good.
I don't think it's as big a discount as we think it is. For those of you who haven't seen the contract yet, the Leafs signed Ilya Mikheyev to a 2-year, $1.645 million per contract extension. He was a current RFA with arbitration rights. His arbitration hearing would have been today, but they agreed to this contract last night. So they avoided arbitration. He is not eligible for the expansion draft, apparently. He probably would have earned more if he'd gone into the KHL. That's, I think, pretty much a guarantee. And he did take less to sign with the Leafs. They mentioned that they did have an agreed upon number, and he agreed to take less.
Wow. Yeah.
We don't know how much less. Like, he's making 1.645. His number is 65, right?
Yeah.
So we could have been making 1.65, and Kyle's thinking, okay, this is going to get a ton of backlash from Leafs fans because we've already signed Matthews and Marner to contracts that end in their number. Can you give us, what, $5,000 off? $10,000 total off? So I don't get roasted in the media? Like, we don't know.
True.
And in the same vein, he could have been going for 1.8 or 2.
Yeah.
We don't know. But it's just, it's good to see he's willing to take less. It's good to see that his goal
is to win. Yeah.
Is to win. And he wants to do it with Toronto, thankfully. And to have a middle six guy locked up to 1.645 for 2 seasons, I think that's amazing.
Yeah, that second year is
especially when he could have
huge.
made more. Yeah, especially when he could have made more in the KHL.
Yep, 100%. This guy can play on your second line power play, penalty kill. He's going to be great, and the fans love him. Soup or just Ilya Mikheyev. Can someone explain that to me? Why did that become a thing? Just saying Ilya Mikheyev?
What?
Like though, if you
Calling him?
Yeah, just calling him Ilya Mikheyev. Like, if you look at The comment section on the Instagram post that the Leafs posted when he got signed, all of the comments just say Ilya Mikheyev. I don't get it. How did that start?
Ilya Mikheyev.
Yeah, well, okay. Is that it? Like,
I don't know. I think so. I don't know.
I don't
thought
know.
you were talking about the soup thing. Why
no,
it gets called soup.
I understand that part, but yeah, I've never seen a comment section when someone gets signed. Like, all the comments just say his name, Ilya Mikheyev. That's all it says. It doesn't say, like, yeah, we got him, or great deal. It just says Ilya Mikheyev. So, and Steve Dangle opened up his signing video just saying Ilya Mikheyev. I don't get it. I need someone to explain this to me.
Yeah, I can't explain it because I don't really understand what you're saying. I didn't really look at the replies.
Okay.
But yeah, I like this deal for the Leafs. I think it's great. Yeah, it's just good to have a middle six guy, a guy who can play anywhere in your lineup, signed to 1.645. I think that's perfect.
Yep.
And one of the big reasons he took this amount, he also said, was so that someone didn't have to get traded.
Ooh. I still think someone's going to get traded, though.
Potentially. I don't know. I trust them as these Dubas and Pridham as these salary cap wizards as they are to figure all this figure all this out. But if anything you want to add?
No, I think that's it.
All right. With that, we have come to an end. The Chris Russell contract is official.
Hold on. I got something else. The Seattle Seahawks might sign Antonio Brown. So that's heating up again. There's some breaking news that they're in talks. I think he's available to come back in week 8. So we'll see if that happens.
Have we not learned that signing Antonio Brown's the bad and wrong decision?
Apparently not. Apparently not. The Seahawks did it with Josh Gordon in the past, and I guess they want to take a chance with Antonio. I mean, the Seahawks are undefeated already, and adding an elite wide receiver like Brown would help them a lot. But it's the off the field stuff that's the problem with Brown, not the on field stuff.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk about that next week. When we will go live again at 3 o'clock Eastern on SpiritLive.ca, as well as on the YouTube channel. Where you can go and listen to that. This stream will stay up. We've been going for 92 minutes apparently, so a decently short episode, all things considered.
Pretty good.
We are used to in our 2 to 3 hour podcasts. But we'll be back next week. We will talk to you next week. Please like, share, comment, rate the podcast if we upload it to Spotify / Apple Podcasts / wherever we're available. I don't know if you did that last week, but
no, I
do
did
that if you can.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week.